One.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's do our Unit 1 review really quickly. I just want to go through the answers and make sure you have everything. So let's get started. Number 1, label woodlands, southwest, plains, and Arctic. It's going to be hard for me to label in this mode. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my mouse. Remember that the woodlands are all in this area, and that's easy for you to remember because the woodlands are where Kentucky is located. Kentucky is about right here. So the woodlands are here. The southwest is here. Got a little bit of Arizona, a little bit of Texas, New Mexico, that area. And the plains are right in the middle. Remember, our country is it has mountains, huge mountains here, mountains over here, and in the middle it's flat. So these are the Great Plains. This is the plains area. And then, of course, the Arctic is up here in Alaska and on into Canada and stuff. But if we're just doing the United States, the Arctic would be up here. All right? The next one, compare and contrast Native Americans from these 4 regions. And I wanted you to especially look at it in terms of shelter and food and water. What kind of shelter did the woodlands Native Americans use? They made wigwams, and those wigwams were made out of wood and tree bark. Okay. What food and water? They lived near rivers, and they had tons of food sources. So they had deer and fish and plants and all kinds of stuff. Okay, the list goes on and on. They definitely had the most resources. All right. So the Southwest, their shelter were adobe houses, and these are houses made of adobe, which is a material you find there, and mud or clay. And the food and water, remember the Southwest was really unique and really cool actually because the Southwest is your desert area. And so in this area, they were not able to, really, there weren't a lot of big animals that lived there because, again, it's the desert. No one wanted to. There wasn't a lot of water. And so what they had to do is they had to grow their own crops. And the way that they were able to do this is through irrigation systems. So remember, they had to dig trenches that would collect water. They would also hold water in clay pots too. But they had irrigation systems. They would dig trenches that would hold their water between rains, which didn't happen very often. Remember, this is the culture that did the rain dance often. And then they were able to grow crops using those irrigation systems. Otherwise, they just had really small reptiles. That's not enough to feed people and sustain people over time. So the key here is that they grew crops through the use of irrigation systems. In the plains, the most important part is that the most important thing to know for shelter is that they had the teepee so they could move easily. Why? Because they are following buffalo. So that teepee was made out of buffalo, and it was something that they could easily pick up and carry off because they had to move often in order to follow their food, which is the next answer as well, which is the buffalo. And last but not least, the Arctic, they lived in igloos. And believe it or not, these people were nomads too. Igloos were quick and easy to build. And so, igloos were what they made in the Arctic, and they needed to be quick and easy to build because they were also nomadic, just like the Plains Indians. They would follow caribou, polar bear, and other big game. All right, they would also fish too. All right, so this one lists as many aspects of culture as you can. This isn't necessarily saying you have to, darn it, they are went off the edge of the page there. There we go. All right, so list as many aspects of culture as you can. I'm not talking about a particular culture. I just want to know if you know the definition. So, goodness, culture is the food you eat, the clothing you wear, the language you speak. Culture is the type of house you live in, what your house looks like. It could be the religion and your belief system that you follow. Your culture can be your idea of right and wrong, your rules. This list goes on and on and on. So I just want you to know that culture is not the climate or geography. Okay? These things impact culture, but when you're talking about culture, you're not talking about climate or geography. It impacts the food you eat, the clothing you wear, things like that. But that is not culture. All right. How did domestication change the world? Remember that the word domestication means agriculture or farming. All right. Oops. So how did agriculture and farming changed the world? It allowed communities to be formed. What that means is, remember, up until this point, all these people were nomads. Okay, they had to move around constantly from place to place in search of food. And so once they learned how to farm, once they learned how to grow their own crops, once they domesticated those animals, made them stay in one place, this finally allowed them to stay put where they were and form these communities, form these governments, form these towns. Okay. How did the New World differ from the Old World? The biggest difference is in resources, so don't forget that. Okay, the biggest difference is in resources. So we know that the Old World had wasted, or let's just say used up a lot. We won't say all, we'll say a lot of their resources. And the New World was full of those resources. Unfortunately, we know that eventually Europe started to deplete the New World resources as well. Also, remember that New World is America and Old World is Europe. All right? Next, why did Europeans explore before Columbus found America? So why did Columbus even leave? Remember, it was because Europeans needed spices from Asia, but they had to rely on others to get it for them. This is the Arab traders. This is the Venetian merchants, right? The trip there was dangerous, and it was long. And so they had to rely on other people to get it for them. And those other people charged a lot for these spices, right? They were really, really expensive. And so Columbus and people during his time explored America, or didn't explore America, they explored, period. They explored to find a cheaper, let's say an easier and safer route to Asia so that they could get spices for cheaper. All right, so they can get spices cheaper. All right, that's that one. And last one, I only have 10 minutes per video, so this is the last one we'll answer on this video. But how did the Europeans succeed in taking over the Americas from the Native Americans? Again, the Native Americans did not just give up. They did not just let us have their land and roll over. Europeans weren't smarter than them. Yes, they had better technology, but the number one reason why the Europeans were able to take over the Americas is because of the diseases that they brought with them. Remember, those diseases wiped out 90% of the Native American population.